Hello, my name is Kyle, and welcome to the channel. This is The Conservative Take. Here we take culture, TV, movies, news, and politics, and we filter it to you the right way. If this is your first time here, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button and that bell icon so you don't miss any future content. Also, if you want to join this channel and support us, then please click the join button to find out how to do that. In this particular video, I'm going to share with you several things. Before I do that, I want you to check out our Parler account. It's at parler.theconservativetake.com. It's a direct link. It'll take you to our page where we update things on an hourly basis. It's going to be summarized of the news that you see today. This particular video is going to cover a lot of that. It's not going to cover all of it, but it will cover enough that you will get a feeling of what's going on. If you want to know what happened prior to today, there's a video out there titled 11/15/2020, which will go back a few days prior to that to catch you up to speed on that as well. And so we're trying to do our best to keep this stuff consolidated and to a point where people can actually put this together and actually make sense of it, because there's a lot of stuff going on. So the first thing I want to talk to you about really is the main thing is how the Trump campaign is organized and how they're trying to go after this in a two-tier attack to get this election back into the hands of Trump in terms of him getting enough electoral votes to get back to the White House for another 4 more years. And I also want to talk to you about why the Trump campaign, or the legal team at least, feel very confident that this is going to be overturned based on some recent comments made in media outlets like Fox News over the past couple of days. And I want to talk to you about some breaking news that happened within the last hour or so that I didn't get a chance to prepare. There's some stories that we're going to cover over in a kind of a fast kind of deal that you can see what's going on, and maybe that would be a big story for tomorrow. But for now, we're just going to cover that as quickly as possible. But again, the main thing I want to talk to you about is the plan of attack of how the Trump campaign, or the legal team that is looking to tackle this election. As you know, there's a lot of things going on, and I want to share with you how this is going to be broken down. 2 ways. Number one, they're going to look at it from a legal perspective. The legal perspective is that they're going to take cases, that they're going to go to various states, and they're going to file complaints, they're going to file lawsuits against these particular states of things that are going improperly, which I will cover in a second. The second part of that is going to be the state legislators. This, again, is the key area of the time, manner, and place that elections happen. That is given solely to the state legislators, as given from the Constitution of the United States, gives them the sole responsibility, not secretaries of states, not governors, certainly not judicial activist judges at all. It's going to strictly be the state legislators of each particular state. Now, the important thing to know about this is that within that, there's also the area of the legal side where they're looking at handling the issue of fraud. That is something that's broken up into the legal side, but the other side that's going to be improper acts, which means that there's going to be areas that the states did not do things legally, like not letting Republicans watch the counting of the votes, or having improper ballots come in after the deadline. Those sort of things are not proper in terms of the law when it comes to the way elections are supposed to be handled. And the fraud, of course, is dealing with stuff like the Dominion software, which is a big deal because that is switching votes and it's causing a chaos all across this country in terms of the vote count, and is making the election process be very, very unstable and not trustworthy. And so one thing that's happening now is the lawyers within the legal side of it, there are 2 key, well, actually there's 3, but we'll cover 2 right now. Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell. These 2 people are in the media right now, and so is the other one that I'm going to talk about in a second, about how they feel that this is going. Rudy Giuliani came on yesterday and was talking about how he felt that the evidence that they have right now is going to be so convincing that they're going to have states like Pennsylvania and Michigan overturned. Also, Sidney Powell, who is the attorney for Michael Flynn, who is also part of the Trump cabinet, he's been railroaded over the past 4 years. She's been doing a good job on his campaign, or his case, and now she's on this particular part of the overseeing of the election fraud. She came on to Maria Bartiromo show and said that it's massive criminal voter fraud. It's going to blow the mind of everyone in this country. She went on also to say that on Maria's show that this particular software called Dominion was designed to rig elections. What's interesting is this software company is called Smartmatic, and the president, his name is Peter Neffenger, who is an Obama appointee, but also is on the Biden transition team. Of course, there's nothing fishy going on there, right? Of course not. This is him right here. He's the guy who's over the software company. And so Maria came in to say this, and I'm going to say here, she says, we're fixing to overturn the results of the election in multiple states, and President Trump won not by hundreds of thousands of votes, but by millions of votes that were shifted by this software that was designed expressly for that purpose. We have sworn witness testimony of why the software was designed. It was designed to rig elections. He was fully briefed on it. He saw it happen in other countries. It was exported internationally for profit by the people behind Smartmatic and Dominion. They did this on purpose. It was calculated. They've done it before. We have evidence from 2016 in California. We have so much evidence, it feels like it's coming through a fire hose. I'm getting this information also from Steve Turley and other YouTube bloggers that have compiled this together. But this is something that is going across the internet now, especially on Parler, and making waves and headlines. She used the term, I'm going to release the Kraken, which is a mythological creature that is basically a weapon of mass destruction. So she's going to use the evidence that she has in a mythological term to destroy the case of the Democrats and Joe Biden's attempted coup of this presidency of this country. And so I will say that because other people are using those same terms, that this is nothing more than a coup d'etat on this country. It's been orchestrated by a plethora of people across various organizations at the same time, a coordinated effort. And I'm not the only person saying this. Also, if you want to go into Pennsylvania, because the key thing about Pennsylvania is this: if they can get Pennsylvania to turn, Pennsylvania is one of the states that has the situation where the Secretary of State, or in this case, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, ruled that the election could be extended beyond the 11/3 date onto, I guess that would be 11/6, for the extending of the counting. The Supreme Court, Judge Alito, Supreme Court Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, had a ruling that basically said, look, you can't do that. You can't overstep your bounds. It says here in this article here that Pennsylvania Supreme Court Court rules ballots can't be tossed over mismatched signatures. But what they did say was, they said that the ruling came out later that they could disallow any, and should, by the way, disallow any votes that came past the deadline on November the 3rd. Also, you have here where it says that the Alan Dershowitz, who's also a defense attorney, but he's also a Democrat, but he also sided with President Trump during the impeachment hearings, said that he thinks that Trump will win the lawsuit if enough votes are at stake. So he feels that this is in Trump's corner because simply this, again, the Constitution says this, that it is the state legislators, not the bureaucrats, not the Secretary of State, not the governor, not the Supreme Court of the state. No, it is solely to the state legislator to determine time, place, and manner of their elections. They can essentially do whatever they want. And so if Pennsylvania goes this way, that same tactic, that same argument is being used in states like Georgia as well. And so this could just be a ruling that could snowball on down. We'll talk about Georgia in a little bit. So here it says here that Supreme Court orders separation of count of late arriving ballots. I just mentioned that. So the ruling came down to say, hey, the judge said, look, you guys overstepped your bounds. You were not allowed to say the time, place, and manner of this by extending the date of the counting. That is strictly to the state legislation, which is, by the way, held by Republicans, and therefore said that anything coming past those deadlines will be tossed. So that was a huge ruling. And here's Judge Alito's court filing here. And also, there's also things dealing with Georgia, as I mentioned that as well. And so in Georgia, what we have the situation is here is that in Georgia, we have a Secretary of State who is basically slowing down the process in some ways and speeding up the recounts in other ways. And he's not doing his job. And what's happening here is we have a guy by the name of Lynn Wood, who is the attorney also on the Trump legal team, who's been tweeting things out. But he filed a suit this week as well, or last week as well, to go after Georgia and to have it relooked and have the counts of the votes audited and canvassed and to slow down the certification of the election. Because I mentioned before, one of the things that they're trying to do, the Democrats that is to speed everything up to get certification to happen. Therefore, they can say that Biden won that particular state, and therefore they could issue Biden electors to the Electoral College. If that happens, then that pretty much is a done deal. And so the Trump campaign wants to, two ways, go after the state legislators to say, hey, let's stop the canvassing of this, and let's start the canvassing, and let's audit and hand check these ballots and recount in a way in which the Republicans can also be a part of it, and also to go after the fraud side of it as well, and to let the legislation know and the people of this country know that this election is fraudulent and needs to be corrected. And this probably will go to the Supreme Court, where the Republicans and Trump have an advantage with the addition of Amy Coney Barrett. And so one thing we see here is that we have a guy by the name of Brad Raffensperger, who is of the Secretary of State of Georgia. He's causing havoc. He's not allowing any audits. He's locked himself away in his house because he's identifying with COVID now, and so no one can really get to him anymore. So that's very convenient for him. And they're keeping the GOP away from these counts. And so what Lynn Wood of the Trump legal team is doing is trying to get them to get this stopped, slow down, and have real audits in Georgia. But what's going to happen is eventually is if Pennsylvania can go Trump's way, then Georgia will fall right in line, because the same arguments for Pennsylvania are the same arguments that they're using for Georgia. Also, check this out. I found this very interesting as well. That the one thing that's happened here is that I didn't realize this until just today. I got this from Steve Turley. Was that Vice President Biden underperformed Hillary Clinton in every single urban area, every single population center area in the country except for 4. I'll say this again. Biden underperformed Hillary Clinton in every city, every major Democrat population center in the entire country except for 4. Those 4 cities are Atlanta, Milwaukee, Detroit, and Philly. In this case, Atlanta. In all these cases, Biden super performed in a way that was like 95% turnout in these areas, where the other areas were like way less than that. And there was no metric to explain why Biden could superly exceed himself in these 4 cities and nowhere else in the country, and have these ballots come in en masse at a level that's so high, it just breaks all kind of common sense, and it is a statistical impossibility and needs to be looked at. And these are the kind of things that the Trump campaign is actually going to look at, because, and to convince, talk to judges and legislators to say, hey, there's something going on here. There's improprieties here, and we want this looked at. We want audits. We want all this to happen, because no one can have a confidence level that this is legitimate when this is only the 4 areas in the entire country that this happened, and there's no variable to explain any of it. So with that, let me just talk to you about Lynn Wood a little bit here. Lynn Wood is the attorney for Trump down in Georgia. And I mentioned this in yesterday's video. Essentially, here's the lawsuit here. I'll leave a link to this as well. He filed this in Georgia to let people know, hey, if you are in Georgia or you know people in Georgia, call them up and let them know to talk to their local representatives about getting a fair count in this particular state, because it's incredibly important. You have an activist Secretary of State who is going against his constitutional duty and acting on behest of the Biden campaign. And it's really, really a scary thing when you see this kind of partisanship at a level like that, when that's not how it's supposed to go down at all. All right, so let's talk about some breaking news here that happened recently. I'm going to go this pretty quickly here. So let's talk about a little bit about what happened today, actually. This tweet came in from the Gateway Pundit. This is Jim Holt. Says here that Trump lawyer tweets article alleging Philly mob boss may reveal how they stole the election in exchange for full expungement of his criminal record. So it seems like it's a pay-for-play type of deal there. We'll keep an eye on this. I've heard as much as $10 a vote. I don't know. That's unsubstantiated. I heard that. But I'll keep an eye on that one. Another thing that came in recently is this is Linwood. Again, we mentioned him again. Where basically he's saying here that this is dealing with the governor of Georgia. This is what he's saying a suggested course of action would be for the governor. Number one, to order a special session of the Georgia General Assembly legislature. 2, resign. 3, admit guilt. 4, go to prison. And 5, ask for a cell near the Georgia Secretary of State, the guy I mentioned to you before. He mentioned that if you want to follow someone who has some really good updates, follow Linwood on Twitter. He is phenomenal. He's keeping people up to date, and he is very confident, just like Giuliani is, just like Sidney Powell is, very confident that this is going to go our way. All right, also, this came interestingly enough. Kevin McCullough, I've quoted him a bunch on this channel. He said he summarized basically how they were able to cheat this election by state. He says here that in Nevada, it came down to 0 signature verification. In Pennsylvania, counting late ballots for the full 3 days. For the 3 full days, we mentioned that before, how that was overturned past 8 o'clock. That's going to be tossed out now. And in Wisconsin, in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, also, they stopped the count 100-0 ballot dumps. In Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Virginia, and New Hampshire, where there was electronic flipping of totals. They're saying now that they have the evidence, they're being organized, and they're about to rain it down. That's what we call bringing on the Kraken. He says almost there. We'll leave that there for you as well to check that out. And this is a story that we broke. We didn't break it, but we mentioned it. It was in a Latino publication. It was in Spanish. Now we found some more articles about this, that the political director for Joe Biden campaign has been arrested for electoral fraud, ballot harvesting in Texas. And I believe he also was an FBI agent, former FBI agent as well. That was very interesting. So that's being covered now a little bit more. And lastly, this is pretty interesting here. Ivan's Projection, he's a person I follow on Twitter. He was recommended by Marco Flynn, actually. And he has this prediction where Trump will end up with 305 and Biden 233 after we go through the constitutional process. He's actually a constitutional lawyer. And I believe he's a lawyer, but he's a constitutionalist. And in fact, I believe he is a lawyer. And so he has this post out there that he pinned to his Twitter, which has this. But then LinkedIn, the company LinkedIn, actually took the tweet down or put a message on it because he posted it on LinkedIn as well. And they said that this is not part of our community standards, and basically said that the Constitution, what he was saying, wasn't valid. And so Ivan went out and he put them on blast. And eventually, LinkedIn actually retracted it and said, "Oh, our bad, you're right." So he says here, admits mistake and considers my projection of a Trump 305 to Biden 233 victory to be fully sound and based in law and in fact. The U.S. Constitution is not misinformation. So that's a small victory that he won. So with that, what do you think about what's going on with the election? I have more information to give, but I'm not really prepared to do it right now. Things are changing all the time. If you like what I'm doing here, please, share with your friends with what's going on, and check out some of these people on Twitter and on Parler, what they're doing. What they got going on is really cool, and I think it's really a full court effort that everyone's trying to do here. And I think it's something that as a country, it's something we have to go through. Almost every 80 years you have something like this, right? Almost 80 years, almost to a fault, you have something majorly happening to this country, which puts the balance of this country and freedom around the world at a balance. All right, this is the fourth time, I think. The time before this would be World War II. The time before that would be the Civil War. And the time before that would be the Revolutionary War. And each of those times, there were critical moments where we didn't know which way it was going to go. And I think we're in that same time right now. And each time, liberty won out. And so with that, again, if you like what I do with this channel, please click the like and subscribe button and that bell icon so you don't miss any future content. And also share with your friends. And if you want to join us and support us, then please click that join button below. We'd be glad to have you on board. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time.